Hello, everyone. Welcome to Seasons Podcast. We're so excited to be back with another episode in our season about the power of influence. We've been talking with people about influences in their lives, people that have had an influence on them, how they've been able to influence others, and how faith has influenced their life and impacted them in a way that they've been able to impact others. So today we're really excited to be here with our friend, Dr. Daniel Chan. Daniel, you're a part of our church here at Calvary. So we've gotten to know you kind of on that end, but we're excited to talk to you about what you do in your work and through your work and faith. And so I'm going to do a quick intro so people know a little bit about you.
Great.
And then you're going to fill in the blanks for us because I could never actually properly introduce you because you do incredible, amazing things. So Dr. Daniel Chan is an orthopedic surgeon and specializes in hip and knee replacement surgery. He's taken his years of specialty and expertise and has now offered guidance and mentorship to young students interested in pursuing these specialties. And students come from all over the country to learn from Dr. Chan, who gives his time and guidance to eager students willing to learn. We're going to jump into that a little later. But first, Doug and I just want you to tell a little bit more about yourself, how you got started in the field, and a little bit more about your family, who we know and love, but want other people to hear about. So take it away.
Sure. Well, I'll start with my family first because that's the most important. And so
that's the right answer.
Good job.
Yes. So my wife is 𝘾𝘼𝙊𝙍𝙍𝙍, and I've always said she's my spiritual 2x2. And so we do ministry together. We do life together. She's my biggest spiritual encourager. I have 3 children, Preston, Amelia, and Eleanor, ages 11, 8, and 5.
Okay.
And we all attend church here at Calvary. Our kids go to school here at CCA. And so it's been such a blessing to incorporate school, church, and work kind of all under the same roof. And so it's been a blessing. As for medical-wise, I knew I wanted to be in some kind of healthcare field, probably in medicine since high school.
Okay.
And over time, everything changes in terms of what you want to do. It wasn't until I got into medical school that I really was interested in surgery. And really because of the immediate impact that you can have on people's lives, that's really tangible. And specifically to what I do, which is orthopedic surgery, which is dealing with bone, muscle, and joints. So I specialize, like you said, in hip and knee replacement as well as trauma, so taking care of fractures. And the most gratifying aspect of that type of work is really you have somebody who really was in a really dire state, at least quality of life wise, and you can literally cure them or return them to normal. A lot of things that we do in medicine are kind of palliative, where it's kind of getting people by or buying them some more time. But in orthopedic surgery, really can make a dramatic improvement on patients' quality of life. And that was really gratifying for me.
I wish I would have met you 25 years ago. You could have helped me a lot with all my injuries and raising 3 boys. So
No. Yeah.
next time, grandkids.
There you go.
So Daniel, we're talking about influence on the podcast. So I want you to think about how your faith has influenced your journey, your faith in Jesus. How's that influenced the decisions you've made? And has God brought people into your life that have sort of directed you as well? Talk about that for a minute.
Absolutely. I grew up Christian. My parents have always instilled that into me. And so like you've said before, it's kind of passing on that legacy of faith. And that was there from a very earlier age of mine. But like most people in life, when we go off on our own, we have our wayward years and our prodigal years. And so it really wasn't until much later and coming really in earnest back to faith and the COVID pandemic and our entire family being really sick with COVID, that really kind of brought my faith kind of into clearer focus and kind of a redirection of my life. And having people at Calvary be really kind of spiritual fathers to myself. People like 𝘾𝘼𝙇 Stevenson, who I met through work, who's in the medical device sales, kind of encouraging me in my faith. And even prior to coming to Calvary, at our previous church, I had met John Jones, who took time out of his busy schedule to really spend time with me, going through a book. We went through Disciplines of a Godly Man together, and I still don't know why he did that for me, but I'm forever grateful. And those things were really formative. And now as I get deeper and more mature at work and faith, is just trying to kind of merge those two together because I think they should be kind of one and the same.
Yeah. There's this fallacy in the Christian world that only people that work at a church are in full-time ministry. But you've demonstrated full-time ministry as a life, whether you're at home, at the office, in your off hours, in your social time, in your church, you're serving God. So talk to me about some ways that you've taken the influence of others and demonstrated that in your 9 to 5 role, or whatever the hours are.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure
some
they're not
days
9 to
it's 4 a.m. to 10 p.m., but
Wow.
we won't go there. But I think, and again, encouraged by spiritual mentors, by my wife, just being here at Calvary by yourself, obviously, listening to you week in and week out. It's really not necessarily putting it out on blast. Hey, I'm a Christian. I
Yeah.
think it's just more in a subtle way in how you conduct yourself, how you treat office staff, how you treat patients. I think one of the greatest ministries for people in healthcare is having that really personal interaction with patients, especially when we're talking about surgery and you're meeting somebody, especially if they're coming in as an emergency situation. You're meeting them at their most vulnerable time, and perhaps that might be an opportune time where they may be receptive to things of God and being able to pray for people like that. And I've tried to incorporate that more by praying for patients before surgery, especially if they're requesting it, especially if I know for sure if I know they're Christian,
Right.
and praying for them. And then seeing that halo effect, the patient in the next curtain or the nursing staff, hey, wait, that doctor is a praying doctor, and people have come up to me and said that, and they appreciated that. Holding a Bible study in our office, just letting people know, and then just seeing God work. And that's kind of been the most amazing thing, just watching God bring those people in my sphere.
Talk to us more about the Bible study work, because a lot of people, they know their work world, they know their church world, but integrating those two things together seems really scary. Like, wait, you host a Bible study with people you work with? How difficult was that for you to begin?
Very difficult, but fortunately I have my wife, and so she
wouldn't let you quit.
Yep,
She's the
she wouldn't.
driver.
Yeah, she is that engine that is always pushing me to do more, and so I'm always forever thankful for that. And really, coming out of COVID, when we were all in the hospital together, our entire family, when you come out of that kind of experience, it gives you an appreciation for life in general. So things like what someone might think of me really kind of fall by the wayside. And so when you have that kind of a life-changing experience, then you're more willing to kind of put it out in the line because, God delivered you from that. And I remember one of your sermons, you gave out those cards like, God has saved you from something and he has saved you for something. And so that for something is to take every day as a gift and see what you can do for God within your workplace. And so it started out as kind of during COVID as a kind of spiritual support for people that are healthcare workers going through the pandemic. But over the past couple of years, it's really morphed as we get kind of regulars now into more of kind of a discipleship role for the people that have come and spent time with us year in and year out. And that's kind of our next phase is moving away from spiritual support for those going through the pandemic. And now the people that have chosen to stick with us, hey, let's get deeper into the Word. Let's really start discipling people and sending them off to influence their sphere of influence as well.
Wow, that's awesome. I want to take you back to, I know you mentioned you were feeling like you knew about your pursuit of the medical field in high school, and thinking back to like even my time in high school, I didn't know where I'd end up now today. But I can remember how people back then influenced me to make decisions later, even though I maybe couldn't piece it together. Are there those moments for you where you see like, hey, back as a teenager, I decided to go into the medical field because of this person, this conversation, this inspirational story, whatever? And are there also things that now you look on, you're like, man, I didn't realize that impacted me that much, but that did, and it led me to these places?
Absolutely. I think one of the most formative experiences, which has kind of inspired me to do the same for our CCA students now, is that there was a opportunity to shadow professionals in the workplace in high school. And so I ended up shadowing a pediatrician who was very influential. He really took the time to mentor me, to show me how to interact with patients, how to interact with parents. And so until I got to medical school, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician. And my life would have been very different. But so it's one of those things where looking back, you can see that influence. for better or for worse, I didn't have any Christian mentors like that, but I don't think that was a detriment. God was still able to bring me to exactly where he wanted me to be with whom he put in my path.
Yeah. And now that you're leading this small group with other medical professionals and you are engaging, which will bring up the students and things that you're doing, but as you have this sphere of influence, are you seeing that people are like catching on, and are they taking it with them? Like these other medical professionals, have they talked about sharing their faith with others? Are you seeing them take the challenge, like you've opened up, and realizing their own influence that they have on other people as a Christian in the workplace?
Absolutely. One of the most, encouraging things about our group, and Doug had mentioned the story, our first meeting, nobody came, right? But we still kept doing it.
Wow, good job, you guys.
I know.
That's
Press on. That's like the most awkward moment, right? God gives you a call, you're so excited, and most people quit at that point.
Right.
Yes.
But Un did not let you quit.
No, she did not let me quit. And this past year of our fellowship, we've been blessed to meet this couple, and I won't name them by name, but they were exploring their faith, wanted to get deeper in the faith, and they've really kind of have latched on, and they've really taken everything to heart. They were on the Cove trip, sitting next to you on the bus, and now they've been called to lead their own kind of a table at their own another small group.
Okay.
And so we can just see that the passion for the gospel and the passion for serving, and it's just such an encouragement and a blessing and humbling to be just part of God's plan in their lives as well.
And I love what you said about the fact that growing up, you didn't have those Christian influences, but God was still at work, and you now can see more clearly, but it's just really cool to think about how he was setting a path before you that would still lead to you now impacting people in crucial points of their life, medical professionals who were in a really like a state of emergency really through COVID. You're able to give them this foundation of Christ and this encouragement of faith. And who knew that you would do that back in high school probably, but to see that God is always weaving our stories together is just really beautiful. So I'm grateful to see that clearly in your life. And now through what we have at CCA, which for those listening who may not be familiar, we have a school here on our church property called Calvary Christian Academy. It's really an incredible place. And you mentioned your kids go there, but we have thousands of students, and through, I'm not sure what part of our program, but they get to come to you, and they get to be a part of
watch surgery.
What? Watch surgery.
Such a cool idea in high school.
Experience your workplace, which is awesome. It's just across the street from us, so it's really convenient. But can you tell us a little bit more just about how that started and what that looks like?
Yeah, I always like to say that we kind of build on the foundation of those who came before us. And so the 𝘾𝘼𝙁 family, who is a Calvary family, built this medical complex across the street where there is a Bible, like here, in the foundation, in the concrete. And so they had always envisioned this partnership between their medical venture and Calvary to some extent. And so, again, through God's sovereign will and ordaining, by some miracle, our practice decided to set up shop in that building.
That's so wild,
right at the same time we all decided to come to Calvary. And so as I started doing surgery there, and as our kids started to go into school there, I got in touch with Miss Laura Quinn, who manages the STEM program, and it was always their desire to have students come over. And so I was like, all right, well, if there are CCA students who want to come over and watch surgery, let's do it. And so people have come over, and who are interested in the healthcare field have come watch us do hip replacement, knee replacement, fracture surgery, and kind of just seeing that interaction with patients and seeing how well the patients do who are up and walking and going home within an hour of major surgery, and hopefully inspiring them to perhaps choose a similar field, but also more importantly, to show them that it's okay and good to be a Christian in the secular world and still achieving to do things to the best of your ability, like Colossians 3:23 says, do it for the glory of God. And so I don't think those things were ever or should be mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I think it's the way that you do what you do with excellence. It's the tone, the kindness. We talked a lot. You've done my father-in-law's hip surgery. You've done many of our staff's surgeries. So thankfully, I haven't needed it yet. But it's the kindness, it's the prayer over them, but it's also the excellence with which you do things. All of that creates like an aroma, a reputation. And the Bible talks about the favor of God. The favor of God lasts a lifetime. And I see the favor of God in your life. So I have a specific question. So we're talking about influence. And a lot of your surgery is something you routinely do, but every once in a while there's a trauma, and you're in something that you've never been in before, and you're in surgery. How does your faith and the work of God's Spirit help you in those life or death moments where if you do one thing wrong, or someone could pass away? Like, talk about that moment.
Yeah. I think as I've been doing more surgery over the years, that the faith aspect has really come sharply into focus. Everybody will have complications. Everybody will have surgeries that don't go well. Everybody will have patients that either aren't happy or don't do well. And there's a saying in medicine that goes, the surgeons that don't have complications are the ones who are not doing enough surgery, are lying, or aren't doing complex procedures.
Okay.
And earlier on, when I wasn't as fervent about faith, I would kind of take that all on myself. The success of this patient is what I can do for them, or if I fail, oh my gosh, that's on me.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of something that I think Tim Keller said, where if you define your life by what you do or how well you do, your successes will go to your head and your failures will go to your heart. And it really wasn't until I've had some failures where things have not gone well, and I realized, what, this is really not up to me. It doesn't matter how good I prepare, how good I think I am, that whether somebody does well or not is really up to God. And so learning to trust him in those situations. There are many times where I'm in a trauma or a difficult case where it's a redo case or something that I haven't really seen before or done too many of. And I'm literally in the OR, like, man, I'm stuck. And I just pray to God and say, hey, God, get me out of this situation. Let me get this patient off the table. Let me have a successful outcome. And he's delivered me. And so just surrendering that control, which can be difficult for surgeons, because just the medical training from the very beginning is that you are the captain of this ship, that it's all up to you. You need to drive this. It's you, you. And so kind of pivoting away from that and surrendering your pride is difficult, but necessary, I think, if you're going to incorporate faith into that aspect of your work.
Oh, that's good. Really good. So when you think about the long-term trajectory of your life, you think about, when you look back at the end of your life, what would be the biggest wins of influence if you could project forward and then look backward?
And I'm going to go off something you said before. You said one time that in heaven, your job is obsolete, as will my job. And I heard somewhere once that the only things that matter in heaven are worship and relationships. And so it's building towards that kingdom purpose. And so every patient interaction, I look to maybe, plant some seeds or reinforce somebody's faith. And as I've had the privilege of serving so many people at Calvary, I see that as an opportunity to, hey, God is using me to help you so that you can now go forth and do what God has called you to do. So, if I'm looking back, I would love to see, hey, I remember that kid I mentored, or that patient that I did surgery on, and they went on to, do some work, do some damage out there for the kingdom of God.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, that's really good.
And I think that, seeing you in church, we see you coming with your family, and then, you'll stop by in your scrubs sometimes and get lunch at the grill here at Calvary. But I also often see you just with other people, like other doctors, I think, or maybe surgeons. And I would love to just know, like, as you're interacting with others, whether it's students or doctors or whatever, like, is there an active thing going on in you, like, this is an opportunity to influence them towards something? Like, how do you carry that in the moment? Because I think you're somebody that invites so many people in and around you. And I would just love to know, like, if you're actively in that moment knowing it, or like you're, planning ahead, like for people listening who are like, man, I have an opportunity here. How do you hold that in the moment? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think I'm actively thinking, 24/7 about, individuals. I think, we all have our ones that we're trying to reach, and
Yeah.
those people we think about more,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe the people that we encounter daily.
Mhm.
So yes, there is some aspect of that, but certainly if I bring people to the grill for lunch, obviously that's somewhere in the back of my
Yeah.
mind. But it's kind of striking this balance of, just letting people know, even if it's kind of in a subconscious way, that you're a Christian, without
Yeah.
kind of, trying to, beat them over the head with it.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
I
a
think
fine
just like
balance.
something about you, it's like even, I mean, obviously it's rooted all in faith, but even just as you are as like a husband and a father and just this like holistic life, kind of like Doug was saying, I think people can observe you and your family, and you already are influential just because you're available and you're seen. Like I remember seeing you at our youth camp last summer. It's called Youth Encounter, and I'm like, wow,
He was doing the
he's-
hip hop dancing.
He's a,
Clearly not.
He's a surgeon, but he stopped his day
And
to,
you led
to
a middle
come
school small
and
group, right?
serve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
high
you
school
led
small
a
group.
High school small group.
Yeah.
And like even in that moment, like you're not thinking about the influence that you have, but you are influencing other people. You influence me of just like, wow, this really busy person with a lot of specific skill that he could be using in that moment. He's using other skills and also this other like calling and opportunity of stewardship to like serve our church and serve the next generation. So it is really cool to see the way that you do that quietly and intentionally.
Yeah, so I want to know what's easier, a knee replacement or leading a high school small group?
Oh, a knee replacement.
Oh.
I could do that in
There
my
you go.
sleep.
There you go.
I think one of the verses that kind of stuck out to me when we were going through the study of Corinthians was, on the last day, what we do will be tested by fire. And so, I want the stuff that I do here to matter, to be, built with, precious stones and not be consumed. And so it's kind of keeping that kingdom focus. And it's not necessarily the stuff that has the most glamour. And we know that God sees the stuff that is done kind of in the secret behind closed doors. And so it's not necessarily about influence in the way that we see in this TikTok world. It's not about amassing the most followers or the most likes. I think, the influence, I think Jesus was the best example. I mean, he had the greatest influence with just 12 disciples. And so it's not always about growing bigger and doing more. It's just, doing what God tells you, big or small.
Yeah, so you've been on a journey of becoming an elder at a church. I think you've been an elder now for about a year, and I've watched you step into some of these like spiritual moments. So talk about that journey, a part that you've continued to develop and continue to grow in.
I think one of the greatest things about being here at Calvary is how intentional this church is about just bringing people along that journey of discipleship. And it's just been a privilege over the past several months to participate in the Ethos leadership class. And if anything, it's just highlighted that, unfortunately, I've kind of coasted most of my life in my walk and have not been as intentional as I needed to be. And sometimes I kind of feel this sense of regret where, wow, all these kind of, wayward years were kind of wasted. But, God does things in his own time, and the timing of my family coming to Calvary and getting involved, God can still use what time he has allotted for me. And so, trying to lean into that and make every day count and make every opportunity count as best as I can. It's going to be horribly flawed and imperfect, but I guess if you don't show up and try, then it'll never happen.
Most of life is showing up.
Yeah.
So I want to ask sort of I don't know if this is the final question, but it's a sort of a framing question. So you've won some really great awards. You were talking about an award you just won. So I want you to talk about how God teaches you through successes, but I also want you to think about like a failure that you experienced and how God can use each one to influence in its own way. So
Sure.
tell us about the success first, like some of the awards, some of those things.
Recently, I was given an award by our healthcare system. It was called the Spirit of Healing Award, and it just recognizes people in the healthcare system, not just physicians who have been recognized for just doing good work. And we were given an opportunity at a ceremony with probably a couple hundred executives, board members, hospital staff event, and just given an opportunity to speak. And so I made a conscious decision to speak a little bit about faith. And so I did so and tried to kind of weave kind of spirit of healing into this acknowledgement that there is a spirit, that what we do in healthcare is not all just about, fixing bones or giving medications, that there is something behind the physical, and that those of us who are in healthcare really are in it because we believe there is something inherently noble about sacrificing, and that's a biblical principle. And I threw in a couple of Bible verses as well. And so I think it was really well received. People were just really touched by someone who would talk about faith in such a public setting, and we'll see what fruit comes of that, and go from there.
So God uses the pedestal, the platform.
Yep.
So talk about a moment where if you could change it, you would have. Like that was a really bad thing. But maybe how you saw in retrospect, God used that to influence people, the way you responded to it, the way God worked redemption in it.
Without getting into patient details, I think, like I mentioned previously, I think it's when things don't go well in surgery, and not even talking about fault of anybody, just even in your best preparation intentions, something happens, a complication with anesthesia or a post-operative complication that happens, and you're really hard on yourself. But I think it's how you respond to those moments of adversity where you're not going to react in a negative way, and to not kind of harbor bitterness, to not have that reflect on the staff or other medical professionals, and just be forthright and just talk to the patient and say, hey, I'm going to be with you through this. And those are the moments I think that teach you more than your successes.
That's good.
Well, I want to end our time just by kind of bringing it back to your life holistically and looking at, yes, you're an orthopedic surgeon and you can do a hip replacement in 20 minutes, which is incredible.
19.
What's your fastest?
That'll be about it. But it's not about speed.
It's not about speed, you guys. It's not about speed.
It's like you can get hip replacement and be at the grill by lunch.
Wow,
Yes.
that's incredible.
Look at that. It's
You're
like
up and walking?
Within an hour and home within 2 hours.
That is crazy. Okay. But so you do that, but then you're a husband, you're a dad, you are a man of faith, you are an elder at our church, you are volunteering in different areas. I got to go on an outreach with your family one day, so you're in all these places. And for people listening, I realize not everybody's a doctor, not everybody's an orthopedic surgeon. But this conversation is still so relevant because we're all trying to balance how we steward all of these things and how we use our influence in all of these places. So I would love for you to just right size it for everyone as you've pursued this professional career, and now you're talking about this journey with God and kind of wading through wayward years and coming into a stronger relationship with the Lord. And then you have a family that you're raising kids, and they're young kids. They're going to be, going into middle school and high school, and then
Get
making
ready.
decisions
Oh my
you
gosh.
did. No pressure.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. They'll be fine.
I'm going to stop time for a little bit.
Yeah. Can you just help the listener wherever they are in their life, right size how they should steward influence and faith, and if you could talk to somebody who's 21 and knows about God and kind of loves him, in that perspective,
Right.
What would you say?
I would say probably the best influencers are the ones that aren't choosing to be an influencer, are the ones that it just happens organically, or they're just spirit-led. One of the important things for me that my wife, Un, has always kept me grounded is keep first things first. Obviously, your faith. Before you start trying to influence others in your sphere, your most important influence is at home. So your relationship with your wife, your influence on your kid, your first ministry is to your wife and to your children. And I'm still by no means perfect, and will tell you in that regards. And then I think in terms of right-sizing it, I just think of the parable of the talents. And so some of us have been given 5 talents, 2 talents, 1 talent. It doesn't matter. You do your best for God with what you've been given, and we'll be held account to one day. So let's get to it with whatever we got.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
Gotta love it.
I do love that. Let's get to it. Let's get to a few surgeries today. Okay, here we go. Dr. Chan, we're really grateful for you and for your time.
Yes.
And honestly, your influence. You've been somebody who, kind of like you're saying, it's like do you have a TikTok?
I have an Instagram, but it's a professional one. So
Okay,
there's no crazy dancing videos on it.
Oh, we could get like a
Kelly can help
dancing
you. She
video.
can help set you
I'll
up.
help you. We'll talk about that after. No, I was going to say though, like you're not trying to gain this like huge following. You're not trying to, have the most successful business in the world, but you're just influencing where God is leading you, and you're doing it really, really well. We know that because we hear about you and your family, and so we just really appreciate you. And we're grateful for how God has brought you into Calvary and what he's doing with the students. I think of like how a high school student could be so deeply impacted by how they see and witness what you do with the trajectory of their life, and how maybe they'll start a medical small group and influence others 10 years, 15 years from now. So we're
There's
just really grateful.
one cool story, if I may.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I would love.
So again, starts with my wife, like everything does.
Shout out to her. We love her.
She saw a homeless person in a wheelchair where they kind of congregate on Cypress and Powerline. And this was last year in the summer, and it's scorching. And she's like, man, I feel bad for that guy. He's always out there in the sun. We should go out and help him. And so she got an umbrella and some bottled waters. But then she was like, you know what? I don't feel like doing it. You do it. And so I drive up to the Shell station. I park. I walk up to this guy's, give him to this stuff. And turns out he's in a wheelchair because he was previously in an accident, and he had orthopedic surgery on his knee, and it wasn't healing well. And so I was able to give him that, and then come back and see him a day later. I almost got run over, but that's beside the point. And I was like, I offered to, hey, if you want to come by my office, I'll just see you and let me check things out, get some X-rays.
Wow.
And he did come by, and that was the same day we had a high school student that was also with me.
Wow.
And so he was able to see that, hey, I'm going to see this guy for free. And he also had, because it was raining a lot, he didn't have like dry socks, so his feet were not the cleanest, and there was an infection there. And so I'm just there scrubbing the guy's feet. And so the student was kind of like, wow, this dude is scrubbing someone's feet.
Yeah.
And he's still come back to see me. So I think just putting yourself out there and, just listening to those prompts of God and kind of chain reactions so that somebody else could be influenced down the line.
Yeah. How impactful for
good.
a student to see that you've taken your time, not only just to see that person, but the level that you would go to serve him. So that's really beautiful. And also shout out to your wife, because
that prompt sounds like her voice. I don't know. What is that? What is that?
God spoke through her to you. So
Absolutely.
that's really,
Every
really
day.
great. Well, again, we're really grateful for you.
Yes.
We're thankful for your time. And we hope that you have all been inspired. I know just knowing like what you do in a day, it's really inspiring for me to know how you spend your time and how you spend your life. So hopefully it's a inspiration and challenge to all of you listening. And here at Seasons, we'll be back with a new season soon, so we can't wait to see you then. But until then, catch up on old episodes and check out the show notes to find out more about Dr. Chan and opportunities to interact with him in his practice. Thanks, everyone.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Seasons podcast. Our hosts are Pastor 𝘾𝘼𝙑𝘼𝙍𝑒 and 𝘾𝘼𝑗𝑎𝑙. Seasons is produced by Calvary Chapel Fort Lauderdale, and our theme song is Seasons by Connor Henderson with Calvary Music. For more information about our church or this podcast, visit calvaryftl.org.